In this unit, we're going to wrap up our course by talking about two different features of Scratch that I think actually go well with each other. And so let's just sort of look back at what we've done so far. We've really worked our way through most of the menu items in Scratch here. We've talked about most of the motion blocks. We've looked at an awful lot of the looks blocks. We've played with sound effects. We've looked at how to use basic events. We haven't looked at all of them, but we've looked at some of the stuff with events. We've looked at most of the stuff under control. Again, we've looked at how we do sensing with asking and looking for touching and pointing and distance and all of that. We did some of the stuff here in the mathematics stuff and the operators and the variables. And the only thing we really haven't touched on at all is this idea of making your own blocks, which we're actually going to do in the second part of this unit. But before I introduce the making your own blocks, I actually want to show you this little area down here. And you may have not even paid much attention to this or even noticed it, that there's the idea of adding extensions into Scratch. I'm going to click on this. Scratch has a number of things that they consider to be not part of the base language set in Scratch, but things that you still can do with Scratch, that students can do with Scratch when they know a little bit more. There's a music set that you can add in that actually works with MIDI sounds, and you actually can write pretty cool code to play music by playing with extensions from here. There's text-to-speech, which I'll actually talk about in one of the extra videos after the course is done, because I don't consider this to be an integral part of the course, but some of you who are working with reading and language might enjoy just seeing a little bit about text-to-speech. And then the bulk of the majority of this beyond this is hardware extensions. And so if you wanted to plug in a makey or a microbit to your computer and program that and interact with that through Scratch, you can. Several of the Lego things, the WeDo and the Mindstorms and the Boost, you can actually program through Scratch rather than through the hardware that's released by Lego. And that's all available if you download, not download, if you simply install those extensions. And all we have to do to install the extension is to click on it. In fact, the extension I want to talk with you about is Pen. So I'm going to click on this, and you see that now what happens is underneath the blocks that I had before, we've added in some additional blocks. And again, Pen is an extension. I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed that Pen is an extension. In versions 1 and 2 of Scratch, it was integrated right into Scratch. It was, the third or the fourth menu, submenu up here in this list of menus. But when Scratch 3.0 came out in January of 2019, they removed Pen as an fundamental part of the language and made it an extension. And again, maybe I'm going back to my roots and understanding how computing with kids got started. You may remember that in the very, very first lesson, very first video in the entire course, I talked about how Scratch builds on the work of Seymour Papert and Logo. And again, the work of Logo and Seymour Papert was this idea of moving a little turtle graphic around, and the turtle would draw stuff on the screen as he moved. And the same thing can be done here with Scratch. And so I've always had an affinity for including the pen in work I do with kids. And I know not everybody does this, but I do. And so the ones we're most interested in here are these blocks of putting the pen up and down, of erasing the screen, of changing the color maybe of the pen, and changing the pen size. And so let me just kind of write you a quick introductory video to show a quick introductory program to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start by saying that when the green flag is pressed, I need Scratchy Cat to go to his opening place. I need him to go to 0, 0, the center of the screen. And then I'll point him in direction 90, so again, just like he is right now. And then I'm going to set the pen size a little bit thicker. just so that we make sure that it shows up well in the video. I'm going to try a pen thickness of 3. And then what I'm going to do is to say to put the pen down. And so here's what I want you to imagine. While we can't see it physically, I want you to imagine that Scratchy Cat is holding a marker in his hand. And when I say put the pen down, what Scratchy Cat does is he takes that marker in his hand and he places it down so it's touching the ground. And now when he moves, he can leave a little trail behind him because the pen is down. So I'm going to say move 100 steps. I'm going to turn 45 degrees. Oh, I accidentally clicked on it. You see that when I did that, though, he drew with the marker as he moved, right? So what I had intended to do is to have him to move 45 degrees, maybe pick the pen up, move 50 steps, put the pen down again. This is all arbitrary what I'm doing, and then move another 50 steps. And so again, the idea here, and let's do one more thing here, just so you can see this. I'm going to put some weights in here. So I want to do places everybody, where he goes to the center of the screen and then waits 1 second, and then he moves 50 steps and turns. And we'll wait, and then he picks the pen up and moves, and then we'll wait. I just want you to be able to see this as it plays out, right? And so if I press the green flag, we go to places everybody, and he's drawing with the pen on the screen as he goes, right? And so by using pen up and pen down, we can change this around. Let me do this again, right? And notice that, oops, we have some problems now, right? Notice that when I did that, my places everybody is broken, right? Because my places everybody worried about the motion of Scratchy Cat but didn't worry about the pen. And so as soon as you get into playing with the pen, one of the things that you might need to do is to say, well, when I start the program, make sure that the pen is up in the air so that if I move, I don't leave a trace. And in fact, before I actually start the program, I want to do erase all. And the way I like to talk about this with kids is think about this as being like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? That you draw lines, and the lines are going to stay on the screen until you shake the Etch-a-Sketch. And erase all is the command that says shake the crud out of the computer, out of the Etch-a-Sketch, and erase it. And so now, let me add just a few more seconds here on the wait. Let me wait 4 seconds just so we see this. I'm going to say places everybody. Notice we got rid of all the ink on the screen, and now after 4 seconds he moves forward 100 steps, turned 45 degrees, picked the pen up, move 50 steps with the pen up, then put the pen back down again and move 50 more steps. And so you start to see that he can draw stuff out on the screen. And one of the reasons I like this is that I think that you can get sort of a visual representation of what Scratchy Cat is doing. I also like it, though, because I think it's a good way to incorporate a bunch of mathematics into using Scratch. Or better yet, let me rephrase that. It's a way to incorporate Scratch into your mathematics course. It's a way to use Scratch to do something to support your teaching in other disciplines. We've already seen that because you can do storytelling, right? So that's very useful in supporting English, maybe in supporting social studies, because you can have the cat telling a story about being a pilgrim in the north central states in the 1600s. Right? Or you can have the cat doing some math. And that's what actually we're going to look at here over the next couple of videos, is how we use the pen and some basic mathematics to how we use the pen and Scratch to support some basic mathematics.